What's up, gamers? And today I want to talk about the Herta versus Aglaea. Right now, I know this has probably been a topic touched on before both these characters came out, but now since the Herta's out, now since we have actual gameplay footage of what Aglaea is going to be doing, we already know what she does because the story let us play with her, we know all of her stats, everything like that. I kind of want to go over a versus video, the video comparing both of these units, which one should you pull for, because the Herta is still up and you still have an opportunity to pull for her, and Aglaea is going to be coming up real soon, so you might want to pull for her, right? I want to be going over three main topics for both these characters. First of all, and my most important topic of the video, which we're starting off with first, is free-to-play viability. How good are both these characters on a free-to-play scenario, on a free-to-play team? Future-proof ability. How good will these characters be lasting on your account? And then finally, damage. What do these characters offer you in terms of damage? How much damage can they do? And what do they rely on to get this damage? That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video, guys. So I figure, why not start off at topic number one right now, which is free-to-play viability. Now, and one big important topic for me with this is light cones, right? What light cone options do you have? And overall, guys, there's not very many light cone options for Aglaea right now. What does she have on the table, though, right? She has her SIG, she has a BP cone, and she has a gotcha cone. Like, these are her 1, 2, and 3rd best in slot right now, right? These are the three options you have in terms of light cones. Now, I think there is going to be a very decent or good light cone option for coming in 3.1, but you have to wait for that light cone. It's not out in the game right now. This is what you currently have to work with, and obviously we can't talk about leaked territory, so we don't even know if that's really coming or not, right? Gamers, really quick, just want to make a quick little side note here. I didn't realize for some reason that there is another 3-star option that you can run with Aglaea when she comes out. It is giving her basically damage bonus for every time you hit with the memo sprite that she has, and that resets every time the memo sprite goes away. So I do want to say that is another option you can use. I just want to say that I still hold my current thoughts on what Herta is over her. I just want to let that be known. But there is yet another option you can use on Aglaea, which would technically give you more options than the Herta has, in my opinion, or I guess like it's a really good 3-star option, right? Whereas I don't think Herta has a really good 3-star option, if you will. Anyways, guys, back to the video at hand. What do we have to work with for the Herta over here, right? Herta's best in slot light cone going to be her SIG light cone, like anyone else would say. And I bet you wouldn't believe what her second and third best in slot options are. Second best in slot option is a BP light cone. Who would have fucking thought? And then the third best in option is a gotcha light cone. Whoa, dude, whoa. There is one inherent advantage that Herta has over Aglaea right now, right? And that is just the sheer number of light cones that are currently in the game. If we take a look right now at the light cones we have in the game, we look at the erudition, for example, right? You'll see we have a bunch of light cones here. I'm not even going to count because it'll literally just show you. Look at this, guys. This is the light cones we're going to have in the game whenever Aglaea is coming out, right? We're going to have Genius's Greeting, this one right here. Basically, 3 4-star light cones, 1 5-star option whenever she comes out, right? She's already kind of at a disadvantage on this light cone end, so I think this does make the Herta slightly more free-to-play friendly just because we have that Herta store light cone that I think is better on her than what the free-to-play option on her would be in the game right now, which would be the MOC shop one. So yeah, that's my current take on that. There's just more options, overall options you can run with the Herta right now. Let's go ahead and talk about gear, stats, everything like that. The big thing with the Herta, right, is she gives herself 80% free crit damage there, so that's actually a really big thing that you can look at. But the thing is with Aglaea, now Aglaea needs a lot of crit rate and a lot of crit damage. Now, this is going to completely rely on what team you're running her on, that you need these stats, right? She gives herself a lot of free speed already, which we'll talk about in the damage section later, because speed does play into the damage she does. But overall, guys, she needs a lot of crit rate, crit damage, whereas she really just needs a lot of crit rate here, and she needs a lot of speed as well. Like, she's going to be needing these two things right here. Arguably, the speed on her and crit rate on her is going to be a bit harder to get. So I feel like an overall build perspective, they're probably about the same on this as well. Honestly, going into this video, I thought that this would be a clear landslide victory for someone like the Herta. Actually kind of wrong on that. So yeah, I'm actually very surprised to see this and actually going through and looking at it. And honestly, if you're running her and her best in slot team, which we're going to talk about in a second here because they're wildly different, okay, then this becomes much easier to build than I believe this is to build here. But the one thing that I do think that the Herta has over Aglaea here is the damage percentage that she gets, or I guess not the damage dealt that she gets, right? Because if you have erudition characters on the team, you can basically double the damage she does. So I think this is really big, and I do think this gives the Herta a slight edge in this. This is contingent on having enemies on the field, which we're going to get into definitely here. So stay tuned for that. Now I have both the teams laid out here, Aggie and the Herta. Now, overall options that I think can be used with the Herta is 22, whereas overall options I think can be used with Aggie right now is 21, so very close in comparison there. Now, in terms of sustains, we have 5 for the Herta here. We have 6 here. I put Locha over on this side here because Locha really doesn't do too much over here in my opinion. Better. I think he does help out Aglaea a little bit better than he helps out the Herta. We do some give and takes with support as well. Like supports, there is going to be more supports on Aglaea side, and I'm sure you don't see Palo over here. The reason you don't see Palo over here is because she does give ice damage res. Ultimately, she's an ice character, so I did give the slight edge to Palo in this scenario over here, whereas over here you can run people like Hanya, you can run people like Asta, whereas, I mean, you could run them with her over here as well, but I think you do get more value out of running them over here. And obviously for sub, we have 6 over here for her. She can be ran with every single, like, Air Edition unit in the game. She gets free stats based off of it. She's the fucking Emanator, for Christ's sakes, okay? So, I mean, like, on that aspect, she does get the edge in sub DPS here, but it is interesting to see that you can run her with Fei Xaio, so I do think that is a pretty interesting scenario that you do see over here on this side too. So let's hop into it here, right? What free-to-play options do we have here? Right now, we're just going to sheerly count up by the amount of 4 stars. Now, while I do think QQ works over here because she's Year Edition, I really don't think that QQ is a good option just because of the SP inefficiency. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 4-star characters that can work with the Herta here. So let's put a big 5 right there. And over here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, oh, who would have guessed it, 5 characters. So exactly even on the amount of 4-star characters you can get here. I guess 6 if you were to involve MC over here too. But so yeah, I mean, like, pretty even on that end as well. Like, honestly, like, it's pretty even all around the board, guys. But what I want to bring up here, and where I do think the Herta has a slight edge at, is her second best in slot team compared to what Aglaea's second best in slot team is. So let's go ahead and talk about it, right? So you can see we're kind of taking up Remembrance Trailblazer here, where we don't technically have to take her up over here on this side. We can take a lesser value unit that gives you a good amount of results here versus, you know, we can save this Remembrance Trailblazer for maybe a break team we have on side 2, and it also works pretty well. And also, if you remove Robin here, in terms of the buffers you can actually run the team here, it gets pretty slim, right? Because if we're talking about genuine value of characters, Hanya and Asta really don't have that much value in comparison to what Herta holds here. Because if we take a look at this right here, right? I mean, this is not the Bible or anything, but I mean, it's my Bible, but it might not be your Bible. I mean, these characters really only provide speed attack, right? She already gives herself a lot of speed. She already gives herself a lot of attack. So that's the reason why I kind of put it down. Like, then you would say, then maybe you can swap out for Ting Yun here then, right? And like run that. But then I think like your overall team like viability drops a lot. And just ultimately, all in all, guys, I do think that the free-to-play team that the Herta works on does work for her better because you do get a lot of free stats from your sub DPS. They play hand in hand with each other because you're getting that 80% free crit damage to the team, so that's free stats for the team. You're also getting the increased damage as well, and free stacks with running the extra Year Edition character as well. So I mean, they work hand in hand a lot more with each other than I believe that Aglaea does. Now, I do think Aglaea's best in slot team is better than the Herta's best in slot team. I do want to let that be known, just because of the fact I do think that her team, her best in slot team, does give her a lot of more crit rate and crit damage, considering you don't have to run dual DPS. It's more of a hyper carry scenario. So if you take a character like Sunday, for example, right? Sunday does help out with that crit rate by an extra 20% there, so that's absolutely massive for her, because she does need a lot of crit rate, right? So that means less of ability to put on her. So I mean, if you were to replace someone like Robin here, so you lose that extra turn per action, but you get Sunday, you get the full action advance. So if I were to compare both the two here, I would give probably Herta the slight win here, slight loss for Aglaea here. I think there's just a little small pieces that could be improved upon, especially in the free-to-play options that she has. Maybe if they release more 4-stars in the game, it would alleviate this. Maybe. So now let's go ahead and talk about future-proof ability. Now, honestly, future-proof ability, I think it's a very, very similar story here as well, because for future-proof ability, I mean, this character is literally going to play with every Year Edition character in the future that comes out, right? Whereas with Aglaea here, I do feel like the future-proof ability in this sense is a little bit lower because I feel like the future-proof ability for her is a little bit more niche, right? So what does... Who should we be able to play off with in the future, right? Should we be able to play off with things with summons, right? So summons really big there, right? I think she's also able to play off of actions. And what do I mean by actions? She goes, her Memo Sprite goes, that's additional actions. That's why she works so well with someone like Fei Xaio, because Fei Xaio plays off the amount of actions you have. So I think off of any other action-based character we get in the future, she'll also work pretty well with them. She has pretty good SP efficiency, so I do think she can be used as a sub DPS in that sense. So I feel like that's what she has going for her as far as future-proof ability. But if I were to give the slight edge to someone in future-proof ability, I would say that I think that Herta has a slight edge here. And the reason why I say that Herta has a slight edge here is because you don't have to play the role of you using skill every single turn. Also, she gives 80% crit damage. I know I mentioned this before. 80% crit damage to the team. She can kind of work on the team like I would say that Topaz works on a follow-up team, right? Because literally Topaz gives like follow-up vulnerability to enemies, and that just works super hand in hand with other follow-up main DPS you would run. So I feel like this 80% crit damage that you're giving to the team is really, really good. She also gets a lot of ult charge from the team as well, especially if they're hitting every single enemy on the field. So she kind of has a battery in her own way for those characters. So that's why I would give her like the little bit of the upper hand here. Now, I do want to mention something with future proof ability. Guys, these are both DPS characters. DPS get power crit faster in this game than Mr. Pokey makes L takes, okay? So take that for what you will, right? I mean, they're both going to be pretty prone to power creep ability. So with that being said, that's why I did also give her the future proof ability asset, because she does have something in her kit that enables like more damage from the rest of the team. So if we get a stronger erudition character in the future, she will help that character out more so. And also the type of things that she works with is more nicheified, right? Like maybe if you have another summon character that plays off of other summons you have on the field, then maybe that would work, right? But if we're talking about future-proof ability in this sense, these are all a lot more niche things, like action-based characters, very niche. SP efficiency can work, but it's also kind of more niche as well. Mainly if you're running someone that uses more skill points, you would mainly run them in a hyper-carry scenario anyways. But I mean, overall, I do think future-proof ability does hold more for her just because she does give an inherent buff to the rest of the team. I do think that makes her a little bit better. Now, guys, the final category I want to touch on here, which is actually the damage category. This is going to go over all the damage that they can do and how they actually get their damage, right? Because I do think how they get their damage is actually really important. And I do have a slight favorite on this one, which is going to be a bit different. So, Herta gives herself a fuck ton of stats, right? As you can see here, guys, she's going to be giving herself, like we mentioned in the past, two things here. Crit damage for the whole team. That is a 160% value of crit damage at least, because you're running one extra erudition character on the team. Attack, 80% from using her ultimate move. She gives herself an 80% attack buff. Ultimate damage increase 99%, ice damage increase 50%. She also gives herself a lot of free stacks of damage dealt to the enemy whenever you're getting the stacks up on the enemy. Now this is gonna obviously depend on how many enemies on the field, which is what we're gonna kind of touch on now, which is dude, this damage really does depend. If you're bringing her in a single target scenario, there's one boss on the field, good fucking luck getting this shit up. This shit will take so much longer to get up, it's not fucking funny, okay? So this is going to go up or down in terms of damage depending on the MOC, and that kind of brings us back to this point right here. This goes up or down depending on the end game we have, guys. She is very reliant on the enemies for her future proof ability and her damage overall, right? Like a lot of people say that she's gonna be a pure fiction bot, and that could be the case. As of right now in the game, our end game is very structured towards her because she's the character out right now in the game. But let's say Apocalyptic Shadow trims down to just one enemy without like little side fodder mobs. Say Memory Chaos turns down to one enemy and no side fodder mobs. Brother, it's cooked for her. It's cooked for her. Like, she's just not getting out as much damage as Aglaea is going to get out. Now, Aglaea, massive fucking speed, guys. I mean, like, when I say massive speed, like, her Memo Sprite's giving it 55 speed for 6 stacks. That's like 300 and something fucking speed, okay, dude? That's a massive amount of speed. And that's not even to mention the amount of, like, damage she's getting. When she gets to her enhanced basic attack, which is where she does most of her damage, because E basic is, like, the most damage here, whereas E skill is more damage here, right? So, like, let's not even cope and say that they're not the same in this sense, because you have to get the Herta's ult up to actually get to this E skill, whereas you basically have to get her ult up to get to this E skill here. So pretty much the same in that aspect. So she gets an attack bonus equal to 720% of Aglaea speed plus 320% of Memo Sprite speed. Pure fucking cinema. Okay, guys, this is just fucking super fucking strong. Like, she already gives herself so much speed. You have so much scaling based off of speed. This is like a Dragon Danny-esque buff, but for speed. So this is absolutely massive, or I guess this is more relatable to like Jingle You attack stat based off of HP, right? And then finally a dual attack as well. So this means whenever you're attacking the enemy with this enhanced basic, you're basically going in with both of them at the same time in the same action, but both of them hit the enemy. So you're basically getting your own perspective damage procs from both characters. So they're both doing massive damage on the enemy, but plus it's all encompassed inside of one action. So that's really good, right? But where this gets really interesting at, her damage is a lot more self-contained, right? Like, to get your damage out here, you're very reliant on how many enemies on the field, right? If you don't get her stacks up, you lose damage buff. Whereas with her, you get her ultimate up, you pop it off, you just hit the enemy, and you have a nice day today, right? I feel like they're very polar opposites in where they're good at, right? I feel like for single target scenarios, she's a lot more better in, right? I think we can actually take a look at the tier list here, and I can kind of explain this better, right? If you look at Apocalyptic Shadow, you see she's low on the tier list. I think that she's going to be a lot better on Apocalyptic Shadow. She has blast type damage. She's also very much more single target oriented. you can get those buffs up a lot faster. I think she's very much going to be better there, right? I actually think that Aglaea is probably going to be better in overall memory of chaos as well, because if there's a single target enemy, it doesn't matter. She's just going to hit that shit and run with it, right? If there is AoE scenarios, I think she also can help with that and hit with that and run that too. I do think in those AoE scenarios that Herta's better than Aglaea, but I feel like overall Aglaea is better in a damage sense in terms of like ease of getting that damage up than what the Herta is. So personally, guys, where she gives herself a lot of damage here, I probably would give the slight edge of damage to Aglaea here just because of overall efficiency. That's what I would say. Overall efficiency. Good term there, right? There is one final point here that I want to touch on that's not in these charts right here. You do have one big advantage with Aglaea that you do not have with the Herta. The big advantage you have with Aglaea, guys, if you plan on skipping the Herta, is with Aglaea, you have the opportunity to see what the live stream is for the 3.1 units. You also get drip marketing for 3.2 as well. So you have the vision of 4 additional units in the game coming out versus her, you only have 2, right? So you have double the vision with her of what's coming out in the future versus her. So I mean, like, honestly, if you were unsure about the Herta, you're still not sure after this, I would say just wait. I think Aglaea is very, very close to what the Herta can do in terms of damage output. And I think that she doesn't have as much future-proof ability, and I think the free-to-play viability is a little bit lower, but I feel like the overall damage output's a little bit better for Aglaea in the grand scheme of things. But you can always wait for Aglaea's banner to go through most of the way, see what the drip marketing looks like, see what the live stream looks like, and then make your informed decision there. I think Part 2's banner is always stronger in terms of vision. Anyways, guys, who wins? I think Herta does win in the grand scheme of things overall, but that's not to say that Aglaea is not good. Anyways, guys, I do give my objective win to the Herta here. Anyways, that's gonna do it for this video. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you in the next one. Later. Bye-bye.